Have you ever felt like your brain is just fighting you? Every single step of the way when you try to learn something new? Well, what if I told you the problem isn't you at all? It's the method. Okay, let's dive into this, because today we're going to completely rebuild your relationship with learning.
And that right there, that's the whole game. Just think about it for a second. Your brain is this incredible engine of discovery, right? It was built to explore and connect ideas. It absolutely thrives on novelty and challenge. But the second we force it to act like a machine, just memorize, repeat, it rebels. Getting this one idea is the first step to changing literally everything about how you learn.
So let's dig into why that feeling of dread starts creeping in the moment you crack open a textbook. And look, let's get one thing straight. This has nothing to do with a lack of discipline or how smart you are. It's about a massive, fundamental misunderstanding of how our minds are supposed to work.
And you can really see the difference here. Over on the left, you've got the machine way. That's studying, repeating, memorizing, following commands. It's super rigid, it's linear, and it basically treats your brain like a hard drive. But on the right, that's the human way. That's real learning. Exploring, connecting, creating stories. It's organic. It's creative. It's the difference between being a data processor and being a detective on the hunt for clues.
So get this, boredom is not your enemy. It's actually a super important piece of feedback. It's your brain's alarm system, basically screaming at you that your current strategy just isn't working. You're not engaged, you're not making connections, you're just trying to survive the information to push it through a path your brain refuses to take.
So here's the bottom line. It was never about biology being dull or calculus being impossible. Not at all. It was always about the approach. And once we really accept that, we can actually start to fix it.
Which brings us to this really powerful shift in mindset. What if learning wasn't some kind of punishment, but the most fascinating game ever created? Yeah, it's time to stop acting like a robot and start thinking like an explorer.
This quote just nails it. We are not built for rote memorization. We're built for discovery. I mean, think about how easily you learn the super complex rules of a new video game, or the entire intricate plot of a mystery novel. That's your curiosity driving you forward. Repetition? That's like a mental sedative. But a mystery? A mystery is the ultimate stimulant for your brain.
So, how do we actually do this? Well, it's a four-step process. First, you gotta face a mystery. So instead of just reading a chapter on photosynthesis, ask a real question. How on earth does a tiny little seed turn into a giant tree using just sunlight and water? Then you play with the ideas. Don't just read the answer. Draw it out, watch videos, try to explain it to a friend. Next, you have to test your understanding, and it's okay to fail. See if you can predict what would happen to that plant without sunlight. And finally, and this is the most important part, never, ever stop asking why. This is the scientific method, and it's how every single one of us learned to walk and talk as kids.
Okay, so that explorer mindset is the philosophy. But we need a tool, right? A practical way to turn that philosophy into action, especially when we're facing something really complex. This is where the Feynman technique comes in, and it is an incredibly effective strategy. It's all about the power of radical simplicity.
The entire technique is built on this one core idea, and it goes like this. If you can't explain something in simple, everyday words, it just means you haven't truly understood it yet. Using complicated jargon is often just a mask we use to hide the fact that we don't really get it. And if you haven't understood it, you haven't really learned it. Plain and simple. The information is just a temporary visitor in your brain. It's not a permanent resident.
So, let's break this down. Here's the cycle. First, you take in a new concept. Then, and this is key, you try to explain it out loud to someone else, or heck, even just to yourself. As you do this, you will inevitably hit a snag, a point where you get stuck and can't find the words. That's the magic moment. That's the gap. You go back to the book or the video, fill in that specific gap, and then you try explaining it all over again. You just keep repeating that loop until your explanation is simple, clear, and totally effortless. That's when you know. That's when you've really learned it.
See, this whole process forces you out of passive learning, where information just flows through you, and into active learning. When you have to explain something, you're not just a receiver, you're a producer. You are literally producing clarity from confusion. And in that process, the knowledge stops being something you just borrowed for a test and becomes something you actually own. And when you start doing this consistently, it becomes so much more than just a technique. Seriously, this isn't a temporary hack for finals week. It's a fundamental shift in how you operate. It's a lifestyle of deep understanding.
Now, this next idea, this might be the most counterintuitive thing we talk about today. We're all taught that more hours equals more learning, but that's just not true. The absolute best learners on the planet aren't the ones who grind the longest. They're the ones who know when to stop. They get that the quality of your attention is infinitely more valuable than the quantity of your time.
You see, deep learning has a rhythm. Think of your brain like a garden. The focused effort, that's you planting the seeds. But the real growth, that happens during the rest periods. That's when your brain is busy reorganizing everything, forming new connections, and cementing it all into long-term memory while you sleep. Trying to cram for 10 hours straight is like trying to make a plant grow by pulling on it. It just doesn't work.
And ultimately, all of this leads to a pretty profound truth. The goal isn't just to pile up a bunch of facts. I mean, knowledge that doesn't change how you think or how you see the world, that's just trivia. Real learning is an act of transformation.
So you see, learning was never the enemy. The real problem was that somewhere along the way, we were all taught to forget how absolutely incredible discovery feels. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Where and why did you lose your curiosity? Because finding it again, that's the key to everything.